The iPhone 17 just came out, the 17th generation of a device we treat like a technological miracle. Meanwhile, you're walking around in the millionth generation of a mammal. Imagine every person you meet walking around with a device, something like a smartphone, except the warranty is a few million years long, and the manufacturer is, well, no one remembers who the manufacturer was. That's the strange place our species finds itself in. We're all running biological firmware that started development before continents had the decency to stop moving, and yet we treat ourselves as if we were born brand new, fresh out of the box, special editions with never before seen features. We might actually all be Gen 1 million, carrying forward the quiet victories of every creature that clawed its way through a world that wanted it deleted. Every version before us went through the equivalent of alpha tests in oceans, beta tests in forests, and stress tests in ice ages. And then one day, by pure hypothetical chance, a species emerges with a built-in supercomputer made of electric whispers and salt water. Not a flashy new model, not a next-gen release, just another incremental patch on the same ancient architecture. But we don't think of ourselves that way. We wake up each day imagining we're fundamentally different from the people around us, as if some of us were delivered with premium processors and the rest showed up with malfunctioning motherboards. But maybe the truth is far more boring and far more magical. The gap between our minds might be less like comparing a car and a rocket ship, and more like comparing two models of the same bicycle, one whose tires are inflated and one whose rider never learned they could lift their feet from the ground. And then we build a story around it, a myth, one that whispers, some can, some will never be able to. Don't even try. It's a story that feels as old as the language itself. In this imagined version of history, maybe we taught each other early on that capability is rare, that talent is destiny, that the supercomputer in your head is locked, inaccessible, and unsuited for anything beyond the preset functions. But that feels a bit like a robot factory where every unit is identical, every processor is identical, every component is identical. And yet the robots spend their entire existence assuming their generation is defined by shortcomings instead of the unimaginable number of iterations that created them. If evolution is a metaphorical assembly line, then we aren't prototype humans, we're the millionth revision, the over-tested, over-engineered, endlessly iterated edition. Our hardware isn't new, it's ancient, but it's refined, and that might be why we underappreciate it. Nothing that old feels impressive until you realize it never stopped working. And when you imagine future augmentation, humans installing literal new hardware, replacing parts of themselves with components that weren't grown but designed, maybe that will be the first time in history where people actually run different operating systems, different architectures, different computational realities. The moment when divergence stops being a myth and becomes a specification sheet, then for the first time the narrative some can, some can't might describe actual hardware differences instead of inherited beliefs. And compared to that future, this entire chapter of human history could look like that era where everyone was playing the same game but convinced they were using different controllers, a blip of profound confusion in which we mistook iteration for inequality and similarity for separation. Right now though, right now we're all in the same strange position, walking around in machines that took millions of years to build while believing we're running custom rigs. And maybe that misunderstanding is the real illusion, the one we might look back on one day the way we look at ancient maps that show sea monsters because the cartographers didn't yet know what filled the empty spaces. If we could see the version number of the hardware running our lives, maybe the shock wouldn't be how old it is, but how miraculous it is that we're still here, carrying it forward, unaware that we're not prototypes at all. We're the millionth edition, and the universe may never release another model quite like this one again. If you like this kind of content, please share it.